Thank you for choosing to spend this afternoon with us. I am Vicki Kwon, Associate Curator of Korean Art and Culture. A few reminders before we begin. Please hold your questions until the Q&A period at the end. Kindly ensure that your phone and other devices are turned to silent. We begin by acknowledging that the Rome sits on the ancestral lands of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Anishinaabe Nation, which includes the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation from time immemorial to today. Rome houses the largest collection of Korean art and cultural heritage in Canada, and is one of a few museums in North America that has the Gallery of Korea. Rome is committed to connecting with Toronto's vibrant Korean community and enhancing dialogue and exchange. Today's program, Hats Make the Korean Man, introduces research behind the display Art and Fashion of Joseon, currently on view in the Rome's Gallery of Korea from this April to March next year. Once essential to everyone's wardrobe, these hats symbolize social status and cultural identity of the people of Joseon, the dynasty that flourished on the Korean peninsula from 1392 to 1910. With Korean dramas captivating audiences today, these hats are enjoying a stylish revival. Before I introduce today's speakers, I would like to thank those who made this program possible. Rome Connect is generally sponsored by the Schmidt family, and today's program is made possible by the generosity of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism of the Republic of Korea and the Consulate General of the Republic of Korea in Toronto. Now, I would like to welcome our guest, Acting General Consul of the Republic of Korea, Mr. Taehan Kwon, to the stage for a few remarks.
안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a true honor to join you today at the Royal Ontario Museum for this fascinating event. Hats make the Korean man. I would like to extend my deepest appreciation to the Rome team and especially to curator Vicki Kwon for bringing this rich cultural experience to life. This event offers a unique insight into the world of traditional Korean hats, which have long been a symbol of identity, social status, and personal expression in Korean history. Korean hats recently caught the imagination of global audiences through the popular Netflix series Kingdom, from the elegant god of the Joseon dynasty to the myriad of other headpieces worn by Korean men. These hats reveal a deep connection to the culture and the values of the time. I hope that today's event helps all of us gain a deeper appreciation of how Korean men's attire reflects the evolution of Korean identity over centuries. Finally, while today's gathering is a celebration of culture, I hope it also serves as a momentum to reflect on the ever-growing relationship between Korea and Canada. Since the elevation of our bilateral relations to the comprehensive strategic partnership in 2022, both countries have made remarkable strides across various fields, including politics, economics, and culture. I believe that these advancements are rooted in the strong historical ties and the goodwill that bind our nations. Events like this not only deepen our cultural appreciation, but also foster greater understanding between our people. Thank you once again to everyone here for your participation. I hope that this event inspires curiosity and fosters further cultural exchanges between Korea and Canada. Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to turn the page. Thank you, Acting Consul General Mr. Jiyeon Kwon, and to the Korean Consulate in Toronto for all their support in bringing this program to life. Now, I would like to introduce my colleagues, the two invited speakers. Dr. Jinyoung A is the Director of Asian Art and Culture at the Charles B. Wang Center at the State University of New York and Stony Brook. Dr. Jin curated numerous exhibitions and published books. For example, a Korean ink painter, Park Dae-sung, and 책거리, Korean painted screens. She has also produced and directed a series of educational video essays titled The Story of Modern Korean Art and Korean Art Alive. One notable entry in this series is the video essay, Hats Make the Korean Man, which we have borrowed for the title of this program. Dr. Jiyeon Kim is curator of Korean art at the Peabody Essex Museum, where she is facilitating the development of PAM's new Korean gallery, which is set to open in May 2025. Her research examines Korean art objects made in the late 19th century and early 20th century in Korea, focusing on their transitional characteristics and export in the market. Please join me welcoming Jinyoung and Jiyeon to the stage with a warm round of applause. Hello, thank you for coming. Welcome.
Thank you for
thank
inviting
you
us.
for
And
inviting
hello,
us.
everyone. Good afternoon.
So let me begin by saying how we prepared this talk. Earlier this year, we changed the display in the Korea Gallery, which is titled Art and Fashion of Joseon, and we borrowed the video that Jinyoung made, which is a 9-minute video, and we cut the video into 2 minutes. And then we added subtitles in French language, and we tried to make it fit in our exhibition space. So I invited Jinyoung to talk about more stories behind the video, and also the video includes a lot of Pam's collection and Rome's collection. So we also invited Jiyeon to come and talk about the Pam collection. And sorry that we cut the video into 2 minutes, but today I'm only showing you 1-minute video as a teaser. So let's watch the video first.
These days, Korea is the land of high tech. It's the land of Squid Game. It's the land of BTS and barbecue. But before it was all of that, Korea was the land of hats. You heard that right. Hats. For over 500 years, almost every man in Korea wore a hat. And not just any hat. Every social class in Korea had their own type of hat. There were hats for scholars, hats for merchants, and hats for laborers in the market. In Korea, the kind of hat one wore is what separated the men from the boys. Literally, hats were central to how Korean men saw themselves and how they told the world who they were. Then one day, a new wind started blowing. A wind from the west. A wind that was about all things modern. And it blew the hats right off Korean men's heads. And for the first time in 500 years, without their traditional hats, Korean men did something really interesting.
And that's it. I think that everything we'll be discussing today captured in this video so well. So you watched everything. And no need to apologize, shorten the video. Actually, having audition of a French language, expanded our leadership and, audienceship. So I would like to thank, Rome and Dr. Kwon to creating a 2-minute version of it.
Thank you. So let's talk about this video, Jinyoung. Please tell us more about why and how you created this video.
So I curated 2 exhibitions about Korean hat and then this video essay. I wanted to highlight the Koreans' refined culture through its hat. Korea was viewed as outdated and old and even uncivilized. But when you look closely with the Korean hat culture, you'll find a different story of sophistication and craftsmanship. So I wanted to bring this up as a part of the Korean identities.
And you also start with the research of the books written by American authors.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating to know that many first-time Western visitors found it Korean hat culture was quite fascinating as well. And you're looking at on the left, it's a publication back in 1885. It was written by a man named Percival Lowell, and it's called Joseon, the Land of Morning Calm. And at the time, this title perceived how most Westerners perceive Korea, calm, mysterious, and distant. And maybe due to the language barrier and cultural differences, Korea seems to be very serene and almost a hidden place from the outside of the world. But we'll talk about this Percival Lowell with Dr. Jiyeon Kim and Peabody SS Museum collection. But briefly, he was an American diplomat, scholar, and writer. And the book on the right is published in 1910. And do you see the cover? It's quite grab our attention. There's a young man with a top hat. We'll talk about this hat more in detail. But I'd like to introduce one more book. It's written by Elizabeth Keys, and it was published in 1946. But do you see the title? It says Old Korea and then Land of Morning Calm. So it is almost published more than 60 years later after Lowell's book back in 1885. But it still has the same title, The Land of Morning Calm. So it really shows how deeply the original perception of Korea, calm, mysterious, and distant, continues to resonate the most of a Western audience.
But I want to speak on behalf of Kit a little bit because we also have her prints in our collection. And unlike other Western male artists' perspective, that seeing Korea through the perspective of Japanese colonialist perspective and Western imperialist perspective, Keith's actually, her work present Korea, and then she really loved Korean fashion. And then she was more like giving a warm perspective to the Korean people, like in Joseon as a colonial subject. And that is reflected in her artwork and writing.
She was really, fascinating person. She was a very adventurous traveler. Imagine, it was a century ago, traveling to, international, almost intercontinental travel to Japan was quite rare. She was not a diplomat. She was not a business person or a missionary. But she first visited Japan back in 1915, and then she ended up staying for 9 years long period in Japan, and she extensively traveled to Asia, and Korea was one of her destination. And she visited Korea for the first time in 1919, and she called Korea as a land of hats. And she captured the beauty of Korea through many of her artworks, and she published 2 books, and this is one of them. And first, she was amazed by the all different type of shape of a hat, and then she especially found this umbrella hat very stylish and functional. And there's another Western visitor found Korean hat. Can you show me next? Found a Korean hat made of horsehair was very unique. The material itself, very unexpected and incredible for a hat. Can you show me the next? Its transparency and lightness of the horsehair really fascinated so many Western visitors.
How are they made?
Can you show me next slide? So it shows all the tools and materials, and on the left we have a wooden block that was for the shaping the hat, and then there is iron and silk and bamboo thread. So the bamboo thread was used to make the large brims, and then horsehair was used to create the top part. So it was a very refined craftsmanship to make it. And also on the bamboo thread brim, it was painted with the sumie ink, and it was a lacquer. So it has a durability and then quite refinement. And then next, we have a paintings. It's from the Rome collection, and it shows it's a painting believed to be created by Kisan, and then it shows a hat maker at action.
So these two men are drawing a god after applying lacquer here from the ceiling, like suspended rope from the ceiling, and this man is using an iron to make the shape. And what's interesting about this image, these two men are not wearing a hat. So not every Korean man wore hats, and there are different hats made for different occasions and different social status and different colors and different occasions. Jiyeon, can you please elaborate more on this part?
Sure. Can we get the next slide, please? Yeah, so we are looking at two hats. They are made with the same material, but obviously the styles are different. So these are two hats made for different actually occasions. So the first one on the left is you see this tall linear top and also narrower brim. Right? So this is the hat the man would wear like every day in their outings. And the right one, the one on the right, has more like a conical hat and a wider brim, and of course it has a long string decorated with colorful stones. So this kind of hat would be worn in official occasions, like people would go on a diplomatic trip, for example, and then when they meet other dignitaries from foreign countries. Can you get the next slide, please? So we have this very, very probably one of the most elaborate type of hats worn by high status people, especially the military officials. And then this type of hats were also worn by kings and crown princes. So no commoners would wear this type of hat. So we tend to think. We tend to associate the brim size, the hat size, with different classes. So, and then there are also definitely restrictions on what kind of hats you can wear and what kind of ornaments you can use. But that doesn't mean that that restriction and the code were followed by everyone.
And Rome also has paintings of many hats, and this one in particular in the left, both are adorned by feathers, and the one in the left is a military general god who is worshipped in shamanist shrines, and he's wearing a red hat, a red god called Judip. It's decorated with white feathers. The one in the right is an illustration of court music band Chitade, whose members are wearing yellow god, and they're decorated with peacock feathers.
Yeah, so you're looking at all different kinds of hats. So these are modern recreations of historical hats from the 17th century and 18th century, right? So by the mid-Joseon period, by the way, Joseon is the name of the last dynasty of Korea. So around 17th century, the hat size got bigger and bigger, larger and larger, because people were competing with each other with large hats. So they almost couldn't really sit next to each other because of these large hats. Yeah. So next slide. So even in early 19th century, you see these large hats worn by high status people, and then you can clearly see who are the most rich and most high status here. So they are wearing these large hats, wide robes, and they are also, the hat has this very, very, very long strings. So and on the right, it is a very interesting, comical, almost, and there's a satirical depiction of a man just being kicked out of this tavern because he got involved in a fight, and he is nicely being escorted out by this sheriff-like figure wearing red robe and a very different type of hat. Yeah, and so what is most entertaining to see here is that the one with the blue robe, he's been kicked out, and his broken hat Do you see it? It's held by his servant. So yeah, and then this broken head is definitely a symbol of his defeat and also his humiliation.
So obviously, this is a king's hat made from gold leaf. So this is a obvious indicator of honor, class, and status. And next one, we see, you can tell, the owner of a hat is made from much more affordable material, straw, and it was used to worn by a single man before they get married. And then we have white hat here. So white in Korea symbolize the grief and funeral. So this one particularly made from hem cloth and then was used for the funeral occasions.
And there were hats made for different seasons. And the one, these are the winter hats. The one in the left is a winter cap, Huiyang. And the man in the middle, he doubled up his hats. He's wearing a god on top of a winter cap. Here. And this woman, she is wearing a hat called Nambawi. Nambawi, she actually looks like she doubled up the hat too. She has Nambawi on top, and underneath, she looks like she's wearing polki. So, this figure, some of you may recognize, this was my favorite drama last year, My Dearest. And this was a poster image with the polki. And sometimes Nambawi came with polki attached, stitched together. And we have these two prints by Elizabeth Kidd in our collection, and you can see the man's portrait in our gallery.
And here we have a children's hat. So on the left, we see very whimsical decoration of a tiger design, and this was made to protect children from disease. And we have, on the right, we have a kisses print of the depiction of a boy. Very whimsical. So we saw, you guys see a lot of outdoor hats, and not only the outdoor hats, Korea has so many indoor hats, and also many types of indoor hats also represent the different types of status as well. So when you see next slide, and this one has a 1 tier, and then on the right has a 3 tiers. So the more tier is the higher status. And these indoor caps were used to tie up the Korean man's long hair, under the larger hats.
And also, if you look at the scholar's hat here, so this part is actually a very important part called sangtu, top knot. For Koreans in Joseon, one's hair was considered part of one's body inherited from one's parents. And keeping them tidy was considered virtuous behavior in Korean culture. And girls and boys before marriage, they braided their hair down, and once married, they tied it up. And man's hat was a tool to protect this top knot called sangtu. And once again, social class was indicated through the hats. And even with indoor caps and official caps, this kind of hat is called samo. Tall and winged, samo were only worn by government officials when they were performing official duties in the court. But outside of court, they wore cut during their outdoor activities. And all men, however, were permitted to wear a samo for their wedding ceremony. And I think that's means Joseon was a society that allowed this kind of one-time, exceptional, symbolic elevation of one's social status for the special day. And this tradition is continued today, and then we received this samo as a donation last year, and it was worn by a donor's ex-husband during her wedding.
And now you see a very fascinating photo back in 1884. This was actually taken by Pacific Loyal, who wrote a book about the first book we shared together. When you look closer, there are so many hats displayed in the roof, and then the large crowd of people wearing all different kinds of hats. I guess these people are, more curious about the camera in front of them, but this is kind of fascinating photo capturing the Korean hat culture from that time. And then you see hat merchant with a stack of hats. And then this is a hat maker in action. Is fixing actual hat. I mean, remember that old painting by Jinyoung A, that hat brim and hat top was separated? I guess he's fixing it now. So you can imagine, all the Western visitors found Korea's hat culture so fascinating. So they praised Korea's hat culture in their publications or in the artworks.
And there was a sudden change of
Yeah.
the hat tradition. So the arrival of Western culture to Joseon via Japanese colonization. So our video in the Rome's Korea Gallery ends right here. So let's talk more about it after what happened.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, you see this very brutal picture of a person whose top knot is being cut by someone else. So what happened is, after a long seclusion, Korea finally opened up, but the entire process was not easy. It was very, it was an ongoing struggle, and then there was, continuous conflicts between people who wanted to pursue this modernization policy and those people who were upholding the old value. So in 1895, the king, back then the king's name was King Gojong, so he implemented this, this notorious act called the Haircut Act. So he just, ordered everybody, every man, of course, not women, to cut their top knots and then maintain a short, tidy Western hairstyle. Of course, there was a huge resistance, and then you see people were being chased after, and then they get caught, and then there were people were just screaming and yelling, and yeah, so you can imagine. And then these Confucian scholars, like this prominent Confucian masters, they also often became the leader of the protest, and then the entire thing actually led to a large-scale civil unrest that was happening all over the place. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, and then so when he implemented this act, and then to be a model, to be exemplary, he had his haircut first. The King Gojong on the left, and then Crown Prince is standing next to him, and then he later became the Emperor Sunjong, and he had his son's Crown Prince's haircut, and the person actually, yeah, next slide. Thank you. And the person who cut the Crown Prince's hair was not a barber. It was this person in red circle. So his name is Yoo Gil-jun, and he was a central figure in this modernization policy. So I'm also showing this case, Yoo Gil-jun case, in the Peabody Access Museum that I'm working at. He was one of the members of the first Korean delegation to the US. So that's the delegation photo that you're looking at. And he actually was the first student studying in the US. So he learned this US system. He wanted to, implement it in Korea. So, but yeah, so you're looking at Yoo Gil-jun with a top knot still intact on his head. Yeah, the next slide. But yeah, what happened? So he cut his hair, he had his haircut, and then he changed into this Western suit. So, and then when he left, when he departed for Korea, he donated all his traditional clothing, including these two hats, to the Peabody Access Museum. That's why we have this very important collection of Yoo Gil-jun. The next slide, please. Yeah, and then what he advised King Gojong, to pursue a series of the reformation and of modernization, and one of the reform was this clothing reform. So as you can see, the old clothes was very cumbersome. It required a huge amount of fabric, and then he advised Gojong to make it simple. So you see the new type of clothes has narrower sleeves and narrower the body. Yeah, But actually we have this very interesting episode between Yugil-jun and this grandmaster. And Yugil-jun, actually, he was a very, very determined person and quite a personality. So he was actually chasing people with scissors in his hat. So, yeah, and then there's a very, very famous episode of the standoff between Yugil-jun and Jae-kyun, this person. And then Yugil-jun was like, I have to cut your hair, right, today. And then Jae-kyun was like, no, over my dead body. So eventually, Yugil-jun stepped back, and then, he became the leader of this civil, the army, and then right before the colonization of Korea, he actually got imprisoned and starved himself to death. Yeah. Not Yugil-jun, the grandmaster.
So as Jiyeon explained, it sparks a huge controversy, throughout the society, but some welcome this change. So you see barbershop in Seoul, I think it was in Seoul, right? And then on the flip side, with the Haircut Act, so Koreans are now free from all the markers of a social status and occupation. Before, with their hat, it was obvious, to find out their social status and occupation, but now they're free. And, but then hat culture didn't completely disappear, and they start to embrace a newly groomed hair, and they drawn to a Western style hat. So in this photo, you see a man, still dressed in Korean traditional attire, but he's wearing Western shoes. And now in the photo, he's trying out the Western suit jacket and then Western hat. So this is quite a, showing the period of mixed of, changing society. And ta-da! What do you see here? This was actually main subject of my 9-minute video. And you see here, obviously it's a Western bowler hat, right? But here's a twist. This was actually made of horsehair. So this is a blending of a Western style, but Korean craftsmanship. And this belonged to Peabody Access Museum. And this photo doesn't capture so well, but it has a see-through quality, much like the traditional Korean hat. So let me show you the detail. So this is a detailed photo of the other hat, but you see on the top, there's a, pattern of crane. There is actually 8 cranes. And this is quite a, very common feature of a traditional Korean hat. So when you see next slide, this is a traditional hat. It has a very refined quality, and there are many bat decoration because of that symbolize the good fortune, and then crane represent the longevity. So these patterns has been applied. Next slide. So you might be wondering whose hat is this. This is from Peabody Access Museum, and here's an interesting story. Percival Lowell, in this photo, when he published a book back in 1885, he devoted an entire chapter about the Korean hat culture. And then he included this hybrid hat. And then there's a fun story. So Percival Lowell's Korean friends one day asked him to borrow his Western hat, and then he surprised him as a New Year's gift with this, new hybrid hat. So Lowell in this book describing, the joy and surprise when he received like a massive mountain-like a hat box. So he didn't know what's inside, and then he find out that this is a hybrid hat.
Jinyoung, so the Percival Lowell was the translator of the first delegation to the U.S., first Korean delegation to the U.S. For this connection, Percival Lowell donated many objects to the Peabody Access Museum. But that hat was actually not donated by himself, but donated by his descendants. And Yeah, the other day I was actually, that hat will be displayed in the New Korean Gallery of the Peabody Access Museum. We were doing like object review, like conservation review, and the director of the collection, and he said, "Oh, Jiyeon, do you know what? This hat was donated by my aunt who was married into the Lowell family." So yeah, so that was the connection.
I think it's an incredible story. Often in the museum there are many, ones called, mystery object. But then now, from now and then, we come to clues and then reveal the purpose. And I think that that's, the magic of the curatorial work.
Yeah. And then these hats?
And then I found another hat in Smithsonian Institution. And there's another hat in Berlin. So far I found 3 this type of hybrid hats, one in Salem, Massachusetts, and one in DC, and one in Berlin. And the one in Berlin comes with the hat box that, Lowell was describing, massive mountain-like box. But the box itself is a work of art, and it shows a fine craftsmanship. And I wanted to show more examples, hat boxes found in many museums. But oftentimes, hat boxes like this comes without hats, so often it becomes a mystery, object. But it shows a really, refined quality of craft itself. And this one is not a hat box, but hat bag. But the graphic of a modern man wearing a, fancy hat shows the, the transitional period of the time. And next one is a hat advertisement. So you see many different type of Western hat. It shows, how people desire new style to show, their status of kind of modern mindset. And this one is a hat imported from Japan and also England. So it shows also the trend of fashion of the time.
Yeah, so we were looking at men's hats so far. So you might wonder, what about women? Did women wear any hats? Actually, women were not required to wear hats, but just like men wanted to have large hats, tall hats, women wanted to have like large hair. So hair was considered as a symbol of their beauty, but also long, the large hairstyle is a symbol of their status. So it is the same. Just like the men's hat got larger and larger, women's hair got larger and larger, taller and taller. But so people bought other people's hair. But one interesting fact, I don't know if you heard about it, but all those wigs, the women's wigs, were actually made with men's hair.
And also,
Yeah.
Also animals' hair too.
Animals' hair too.
So there
I
was a
didn't know that.
controversy whether let's ban this kache.
Ah, I see. Yeah, right. So, and then so that women's wigs were called kache, and then so there are lots of controversy because they were so expensive, and then so people were criticizing how much money that they were, the wasting.
The worth
so,
of a house.
Right,
And
exactly.
there was a saying, because Joseon was a society that like strictly divide gender roles and like impose the gender roles, and mixing women's and men's hair and having it on one's head, that was something like huge thing in Joseon society.
Yeah, so there are many interesting backstories. But anyway, at some point of the history, all these wigs were forbidden, and then they.
It's a fashion victim.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
who wore the kache on
Right.
one's wedding day.
Yeah.
And then there was a 17-year-old girl or 13-year-old girl who was trying to raise up and then make a bow to her father-in-law, and then she bent her neck and then she died on the day.
Yeah, right. She broke her neck and died.
Based on the story.
Yeah, right. And there were many other cases like that. So in late 19th century, early 20th century, so they replaced this wig with the wooden wig, as that that object, the work that you are seeing here. So that's less expensive and more practical, much lighter. Yeah, and then women wore hats on, just like Vicki said, on special days like wedding, or the next slide, or when it's really cold outside. So there are several like winter hats. But in late 19th century, also this winter hats became very, very popular. So all these rich women, noble women would wear like winter hats. That's another like symbol of their high status. Oh yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about this children's hat. So that's a little girl's hat. So it was a Joseon custom for a little girl's mother to make this hat herself and embroider and then do all this embroidery that goes on the hat. So it conveys the mother's wish for the girls to be healthy and well, and then for her to live a long, happy life. So it's a really, really a noble thing. But at the same time, the name of this hat is gulle. So if you know Korean, probably you know what gulle is. Gulle is bridle. So the moment this child wears this hat, that symbolizes that this child is no longer a baby, a child. She becomes a woman, and she is expected to perform this conforming social role of woman in Confucian society. Yeah, and then these are somewhat famous photo of Joseon women when they are outside, when they are doing outings, they have to just hide their face with this special overcoat called 장옷, but this type of clothes were exclusively used to hide their faces.
So this Jangyot kind of created a like stereotype of Korean women being like shy and hiding in the public space. But there are other many different aspects of women's fashion in Joseon dynasty and Joseon society in general. So I would like to introduce this 10-panel screen, which is on view in the Gallery of Korea. The fashion trends of Joseon is very well captured in this folding screen, scenes from the cycle of life, which illustrates the ideal life of Joseon noblemen. So this screen is divided into 10 panels, and you're supposed to read it from right to the left. The story starts from nobleman's first birthday, and then he gets married, and then he goes to take government official exam to be to enter the government official's role. And then he's successful. He takes the roles as government officials. He moves up the career, and on the 9th panel, he comes back, and he had the 9th panel is his 60th wedding anniversary called Haehonrae, and this is a celebration of his 60th anniversary of serving as a government official. And I want to pay attention to this screen, panel 3. This man is returning home after passing the state examination. So this is the man, and he is wearing a samo. So samo is the samo we talked about, the scholar official's hat, and he's wearing these 2 branches, which is given by the king only for the top scored a person, and he's having this procession surrounded by his friends who are wearing gauze and the music band with the feather decoration. What's interesting about this part here in the middle ground, there are a group of ladies in the village who are wearing kache, the wig, which were banned back in the days, and they are climbing up the roof of a building, and then this lady is climbing up the tree to see this man, and ideally they all dressed up ideally to have a chance to seduce this young and smart young man. And so this very whimsical representation of Korean folk culture at that time. And also this one, in panel 7, this man became more and more successful, and now he's marching to serve as an official position, like a provincial premier. And he's on the chariot, and here in the middle, there are a group of women who are riding horseback, and they are escorted by this those men, and they are wearing. So it's very. So the resolution is not the best, but they are having this pose. Their bodies like bent, And then they are having kache, and on top of the kache, these ladies are wearing those tonlip, which is made of pig hair, felt hat, which was worn by military officials, like low-ranking military officials. And these men, they are looking back at the ladies with their gaze. So it tells that this woman must be kiseng, female entertainers. So why are they included? So I'm assuming that this artist who made this screen painting inserted a kind of twist and his social critique of a nobleman going to serve as a like high-ranking position, taking kiseng to his journey. And so it's very whimsical, it's playful how this, the play of head and the fluidity of men's head being worn by kiseng. We also have other paintings in the collection, like shaman wearing men's skirt. So there is some kind of strange play going on in Joseon society. Oh, now, so it was very interesting to see the revival of this god, which is now like discontinued tradition in modern Korea and contemporary Korea. And then they gather, they're bringing attention of the global audience from Korean TV dramas and Korean TV series. And I think it started from Kingdom, as our acting consul general, Mr. Kwon mentioned. It started from Kingdom, and then all of a sudden people asked about what is that head? What are these Korean men's fascinating head? And then there are additional videos created like Kingdom, the Nation of Gods explained, and Kingdom explained, oh my God. Yes. So I think this is very interesting social like trend going on. That there are those hats are sold on Amazon Fashion for only $119, but that's because it's made of synthetic material, not horsehair. Not horsehair. That's impossible. Those who can make horsehair, it's very like a high quality artisans. And today we have an audience who's wearing a hat. Yes, and also not only the men's head. Now more and more global audience is paying attention to the Korean fashion from Joseon or even earlier dynasties, which is making very unique a trend in global Hallyu, the Korean wave, and which I also find very fascinating. And yes, let's talk about this book just briefly. So Jinyoung's new book, Art, War, and Exile in Modern Korea is coming. I wanted to bring this because this Ikede, very famous artist, is wearing...
Yeah, he's wearing hat.
Yes, fedora and hanbok together.
But before I talk about my upcoming book, I just wanted to, end this presentation with this note. I created a video essay and exhibition because I wanted to highlight and I wanted to emphasize that countries like Japan, China, or England had a strong cultural symbol that tie with their identity. For example, Japanese tea ceremony, Chinese calligraphy, or maybe English afternoon teas. But Korea, for some reason, maybe due to the long colonial period, our connection to past have been very severe. So, Korea once was known as a land of hat. So I think that it's important to remember and celebrate this, very sophisticated, refined culture as a part of our integral part of Korea's identity. So that was my intention to create a video essay and exhibition to share the Korean culture with, global audience. And this book is scheduled to come out in December, but it's about modern Korean painter named Ikwede. But again, this is his self-portrait. I chose for the cover. It shows a transitional period. He's wearing a Korean outfit, showing his nationalism, but is wearing modern hat to show his Western influence, being educated and being intelligent. But this story, he had a very fascinating story. He was born during the colonial period, educated in Japan, prolific in the 1940s, but during the Korean War, he was a survivor of a civilian massacre and became a prisoner of war and chose to go North Korea, leaving his wife and 4 children behind. But interesting part is that his wife kept more than 60 paintings and more than 300 drawings of his artwork, kept it in the attic in this, secretly, because the South Korean government would censor having a family member, defected to North Korea. But this book, I reevaluated his work in the connection with the Mexican mural. He created a larger series of painting, but I examined it as his intention was creating a portable murals. And in North Korea, he created a mural. So he died young in 1965, but he created a large mural, and his mural still exists. So if in the audience, if you're interested in modern Korean art or Korean history or politics or even Cold War culture, this book will be a great addition.
Great.
But thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we've explored various types of hats and its customs in Joseon and afterward, and also its hybrid changes during colonial period, and also with the Korean TV shows and its revival in global Hallyu culture. Now we'd like to welcome our audience members to ask us questions. Please raise your hand. Our staff members are around. They will pass mic to you.
We were a quiet audience.
There are 2 hands in the middle. Yes, please.
Thank you for presenting to us these aspects of the Korean hat and culture. China is in that region too, so I wonder, is there similarities or shared origins or culture or commonalities between China, Ming-Qing dynastic China, to Joseon Korea? And a continuation of that question, is there a hat material culture traveling from China, Korea to Japan? Just curious to know the history of it.
Who can answer?
I'm not an expert of Chinese art, but I can say that this horsehair is quite unique only to Korean. But you saw the hybrided form of a Korean hat made of horsehair. But I found Japanese bowler hat made of bamboo threads. So bamboo was quite a common material for Japanese people. So in that transitional period, they also made a Western form of hat made of their more authentic material, bamboo thread. But I don't know much about Chinese hat culture though.
Yeah, so that reminds me of this Chinese scholar painting showing Chinese men wearing the straw hats the portrait of the recluse, right? So I think it has a connection to this the straw hats worn by Chinese, not only Chinese people, but throughout the Asia, they were wearing these straw hats. But like Jinyoung said, using like horsehair is probably unique. I'm not 100% sure, but probably unique.
Yeah, but not only the material itself, the first Western visitors, they visited not only the Korea, they visited China, Japan, mostly East Asia, but they call Korea only as a land of hats. So I think for them, hat culture, there's, I think, more than 40 different type of hats for men's by age, by occasion, by status. So there are much more variety in Korea.
Yeah, but I also want to add, so this is probably exclusively like a Joseon culture. So if you look at the entire history of Korea, for ancient times, they were not wearing this type of hats. They were, you see this Three Kingdoms period, meaning like 3rd century, 5th century. They were wearing like a golden crowns and very, very different type of hats, and wearing like silk hats. Yeah, so it's mostly Joseon custom.
There was another hand in the middle. Yes.
How durable were these horsehair hats?
How durable.
So as I explained, it was applied with the sumie ink, black ink, and then it was a lacquer. I think a lacquer itself it has gives a little bit of strength, but as we've seen that folk painting, it comes apart, relatively easily. But yeah.
There was another. Oh.
They really make sure to take good care of their hats. So
With the hat boxes,
hat
right?
boxes, and also there are different types of hat brushes. So they may try to really maintain it clean and nice.
Hi, I have just a simple question. Does the hat fit the circumference of the head, or is it just perched on the top, generally speaking, with this hat? Is that just perched on the top, or does it fit the circumference?
It doesn't fit the circumference.
I think it's all customized, yeah. But usually it sits on the top of a hat, but it's supposed to be customized by the wearer.
So unlike Western hats that fit the circumference, these do not.
Do not, right. So
Okay,
you
thank
see the kisses prints that, the one man wearing the Western style hat, but on the top of it, this was a must-have hat as a Korean man, so they're wearing the double hats.
The protection of Sangtu was the primary purpose of this head, based on my
The
study.
top knot,
Yes,
right.
the top knot. There was another hand here. She waited for a long time. In the very front row. 여기.
I'm curious to know if, because when I've seen the many historical Korean dramas that I have watched, a lot of the hats tend to have a lot of colorful beading that drapes in the front. It's not what secures the hat, but I notice here that wasn't sort of obvious. Is that sensationalization? Like, they seem very elaborate, and I'm curious to know the materials. You did mention stone, but was that the main material that was used?
That looks like amber, right? Amber
Jade and
too.
amber, yeah.
I see. And it even with the top hat that was a lot more, that was sort of like part of your initial screen, like these ones, and they would also have the draping beads.
With
Did
the
that-
bamboo as well. Yeah, they made a very elaborated, decorative, attribution. That was for, to show off their, wealth and social
Okay,
status.
I was gonna
But
ask.
most of the authentic original hats remaining has only the fabric straps. Yeah, but the elaborated ones are a recreation of artisan based on the historical paintings.
Also, there are some collection in Gyeonggi Museum in Korea. There are hats worn by Joseon fashionista whose name is Jiyeon, who actually became the model of the male character in the TV drama My Dearest, and which Nam Kung-min starred, and there are records about how fancy he and people of the time decorated their hats with amber or jade and various materials, which actually concern like the many like conservative scholar officials, like you're spending too much money, and the Joseon society was valuing Confucius value and also restraint and simplicity as a role model for keeping the society healthy. So they were not really encouraged to decorate, but there are men who really paid a lot of attention to their fashion and then showed off their wealth and cultural capital.
Yeah, in a very subtle way. So they couldn't really wear all this like very colorful patterned clothes. But instead of wearing simple garments, they spent all the money to the hat strings and all these materials.
I see. And my last question, when the Hair Cutting Act came about for men, was it also implemented sort of like beard removal? Because that's something that you see a transition wherein there was a lot of, I don't know if again, I'm just going based on historical drama, there's a lot of beards and mustaches, and then you see as time goes into the 20th century, 21st century, that becomes not sort of something that Korean men would you see prevalent.
When I see historical black and white photos, modern men either wearing Western suits or hat, I don't see facial hair. I think the facial hair for Confucius scholar represent more like a scholarly intelligence, but when it slowly transit to modern outfit, modern hat, I think the facial hair has slowly disappeared as well. But I don't remember there was a facial hair cut act, but yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think Sangtu was the most meaningful for bringing this modernization, and also it was a colonial castration, like a mental castration for Korean men, having the Sangtu cut. So that is the most important thing in Korean transitional time.
And Koreans are not very hairy, so they have less concern about like facial hair.
I'd like to say thank you for all lovely presentation. My question would be, what role do you think the revival of traditional hats in popular culture played a role in Korean, I would say Korean identity or heritage would be? Thank you.
I think it's a reimagination of history. So I don't think that it's a matter of authenticity. I don't think it's a matter of authenticity. But the more we imagine, the we were more connected with the culture. So I think I welcome all this popular culture reinvention of it's just a historical period.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, to what extent where was the wearing of these hats regulated? In other words, if the people at large relied on these hats as indicators of social status, I don't know, there might be potential for misrepresentation in financial or commercial interactions or whatever it may be. Was the wearing of these hats regulated in any way officially?
I think so. Joseon society had 4 different classes, and then upper class, elite classes, and then middle class, which were involved in more practical social status. There are many interpreters and merchants, and they wear this, but hat on the left has a short brim, and that's for the middle class people. But hat on the right has a wider brim, and it had a much elaborated decoration that was for the more upper class. So
also there was a fashion trend too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So theoretically, the middle class people were not supposed to wear like large brim hat, but they always wore large brim hats. Yeah. So and then
people with a fortune.
Yeah, right. So in the late 19th century, 20th century, we see the photos of the noblemen, higher status people wearing like narrow brimmed hats. So that's because that was the fashion trend of that time. So yeah, it's not strict that strictly like was strictly like associated with class, although it is supposed to be.
There is a hand at the end.
Thank you. I also was curious about, given the fact that aristocratic men and middle-class men were able to invest much more in their hair decorations, as with the jade and ember, when it came to children's hats, what kinds of materials were available to the mothers and the women, kind of helping create that for the kids, and how long did they typically wear them throughout their childhood to adolescence?
So they were not required to wear hats until they have their top knots. So that they are allowed to have these top knots when they get married. So I'm talking about boys. Women the hats were never like really required for women. And all those children's hats that we showed are made for like rich people, like high status people, and then they were mostly made of silk.
For holidays, I think,
holidays
special
and silk,
holidays.
and then the commoners' children, they had no hats.
They wore dengi, so they braided hair down and then placed a dengi, like a colorful ribbon, at the end. All the way back, there is a hand. He's been waiting. While we are waiting, and then let's please, yes.
Thanks so much for this really informative presentation. I have two questions, if that's okay.
Please.
My first question relates to the period of the Haircut Act, and that was a period of great tumult in Korean culture and history with opening up to the West and Japanese colonization. How much of that kind of pushback do you think had to do with changes to class and challenges to existing Korean Joseon class structure, if we know? And my second question is, the hats seem pretty uniform across Korea. My impression and understanding of and experience with Korea is it's a pretty varied regional cultural place. Were there any regional differences with the hats?
Great questions. I will answer the first questions about the haircut and then this clothes reform. So basically, these reforms, this modern reform, is the abolishing all this social stratification system. So after this reformation, there was no yangban, there was no the commoners, and they are. So that's the idea. So part of this clothing reform is require everyone, every official, regardless of their ranks, they all were advised to wear the same type of clothes. So there's no social distinction. So that's the idea. Yeah.
What about the regional differences?
I don't know much about the detail, but you see these hats were made by living artisan of intangible cultural heritage. So this is designated by the government, and then there is by the region. So when I created this exhibition, there was a region of Tongyeong was known for bamboo thread, and then Jeju is also known for the origin of a horse hair. So there's a slightly different specialty by the region, but in terms of the design and style, from bare eyes, it looked the same to me, but in terms of the artisan, they know how to differentiate it. It was from this region and this from that region.
One thing to remember is Joseon was a very highly centralized society. So and then we have photographs of Pyongyang and other Busan, and they were all wearing the same hat.
Hello. It's such a lovely looking hat. It must have been very practical. It's a mesh. It's mesh, right? So the breeze would be able to go through it. It's black, so it would block the sun's rays. So I'm just thinking. Sorry, this is going to be a very roundabout way of asking. When I look at old pictures from the late 1800s, early 1900s of Canada, a gentleman would wear a hat. People would leave with a derby or a bowler or a hat on, and there were so many different versions of it, but it was part of going out, and I feel like you've brought this to light. It was a similar thing with the Korean hat, and yet it's sort of disappeared. People wear baseball caps now, and but it just seems like it's gone, and it was such a practical object. Canada was built on the fur trade because Europeans really wanted these fur hats, and they were so much in fashion. So my very roundabout question is, what happened?
I think that was exactly same impression that Elizabeth Kiss described in her book. She find it this see-through quality not only is very designy, but it was practical. The air can go through, then sun gets through. So she wrote exactly what you just commented on, and then she was kind of disappointed this vibrant hat culture slowly vanished. Yeah.
So I think if anyone has an urgent question, we will be hanging around in the reception area, and I think it's time to wrap up. We hope everyone enjoyed the time with us today. Thank you, Jinyoung and Jiyeon, for joining us. Please join us for light refreshment in the reception area. As you exit, please also participate in the survey of the Consulate General of the Republic of Korea, who sponsored this program so that we can bring this kind of program more to Rome. They prepared a gift for you, so if you participate, you're getting a gift, so please do. And thank you again for joining us, and have a great evening. And please also visit Korea Gallery. Thank you very much.
Thank you.